Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Talk Nerdy to Me podcast. I'm your host, Justin Hayward. With me today is Ashleigh. We will be talking about another one of her favorite series, the Pokemon series. In celebration of the upcoming Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet, releasing later this year, we've decided to talk about the Pokemon on this episode of the Talk Nerdy to Me podcast. The Pokemon games were created by Satoshi Tajiri in 1996 with the initial release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan, which later became Pokemon Red and Blue in the United States in 1998. The game was inspired by Satoshi's childhood hobby of bug collecting and focuses on three key features of battling, collecting, and team building. The game has grown and developed their own lore and loyal fan bases. Over 31 games and spanning over nearly 3 decades have caused this sort of phenomenon to continue, including television shows, comic books, and a plethora of other media, including fan-based creations of these games, and as well as like fan art. So with that in mind, when did you first get into Pokemon?
I want to say it was probably 10-ish.
10-ish?
The Pokemon Yellow.
Pokemon Yellow? Okay. So, yeah, see, I think I started on Crystal. I think I played Yellow because my brother had it, my older brother being a little bit older than me. But I think I started on the second generation, so you were more of the right after first, but not quite second generation with Yellow.
Yeah.
So, what did you enjoy most about that game from your childhood? Like, what was the impact?
That was my first video game.
It was your first video game?
Yeah.
So, thinking back on those moments, what was so impactful about that storyline or that sort of concept for you?
I think it was the collecting, because I still like collecting cards and stuff and like trying to, complete the Pokédex and everything.
This is Salem for everyone at home who hasn't seen the show before. She's the love of my life, and she is a part of this podcast because she, in fact, is a attention whore. But she is, in fact, the love of my life. Anyways.
Mrs. the Mama.
So, I think for me, one of the key features that made Pokemon really interesting was the exploration aspect. I think that what was really cool was that while you're sort of traveling and collecting these Pokemon, you're also exploring this sort of fantasy world full of these mythical monsters that we had yet to see before. And so it really showcased like the ingenuity of the storyline. And I think even as a young kid, I think I was probably like 5 or 6 when I started playing these games, I think I really enjoyed that sort of exploration and adventure storyline. So, in your experience, given the vast amount of games you've probably played over the past almost 3 decades,
Probably too many.
What was your favorite generation?
I really like the Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield?
Yeah, which is one of the more recent ones, but I think that one's been probably the best so far.
And why was it so enjoyable? What was the key component that really like changed it compared to the other versions of the game?
It had all of them, like all the generations in it, and then on top of that, they came out with some new forms for some of the OG Pokemon.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a Pokemon player, having that sort of nostalgist sort of look at our childhood and sort of reliving those sort of original Pokemon while also getting every generation was a really nice sort of callback to all of the things that we sort of done. I think there's like 900 Pokemon or something now. That's
I don't even know.
some sort of crazy amount of Pokemon that they've created at this time. And so when we're looking back at like the original 151 Pokemon, what do you think was the most what was the most influential Pokemon for you during those sort of games?
I always played Pidgeot.
Pidgeot?
Yeah, which was a weird one, but that seemed to be like until more recently, that was one I always had on my team. What
was so unique about Pidgeot that was sort of different than other Pokemon of the first generation?
I don't know, it just had a mohawk. I thought it was cool.
See, a lot of Pokemon people would say like, obviously, like you get it early, especially in the early Pokemon games. Like it's one of your first starters that you get. It's your first Pokemon that you generally get, except for like maybe a Weedle or whatever, outside of like your starter. And so I could understand why that would be unique. I think that was why Pokemon Eevee, with that sort of flashback to the yellow version, was really nice. So it sort of gave us like a different appreciation of like the original 151.
especially like with them pulling in like the friendship aspect of it. Since you have that one so early, you can build that up a lot faster.
I think another really interesting fact about that game that was sort of like caught my eye was the fact that it gave you a more balanced starter Pokemon. I think that a lot of times, especially when you're looking at Red and Blue, being that we're US based, that's the ones we'll talk about over Green. I think that what was interesting was that the starters from those original games, if you get a fire, water, or etc., you're always going to be at a disadvantage. Because there's always sort of a Pokemon style, especially early on, especially like if you chose Charmander early on, it was really rough to get past that first gym. But with Eevee being a normal type, it allowed for a lot more less disadvantages in the early stages and gave you a more well-rounded sort of group that you could eventually evolve into one of the evolutions, which I think was probably one of the more unique aspects, especially adding the additional types they did, going from the original 3 into the 6 or 9 that they have now.
Yeah.
So for me, I think my favorite Pokemon from the generations, I think I'm always going to be a Gen 1 fan. I think it's just, it's sold to me. I think watching the Pokemon TV shows, even as a kid, just watching Ash Ketchum go through those moments of like wholesomeness, like I think Dratini in the Dragonair, Dragonite sort of appreciation was really nice. I really enjoyed those. And I think even to this day, playing Pokemon Go, it's still my starter. It's still the one that I keep as my little buddy. So why do you think people are still playing these games at this time?
I think it's because you've got, you know, like the more older generation can still play it because that's what a lot of us grew up on playing. And then with the newer, you know, Pokemon they're throwing in, that also invites the younger people into like join, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny because a lot of people, like especially like purists, similar to other fandoms, they will always imply that like the original was always best. But these generational games, when they complain about the problems or etc. that these things have, they weren't built for us. They're built for kids. And so we have to take those things into consideration. But I do agree that I continue to go back to these games because of that sense of wonder. It brings back that childhood nostalgia that I really enjoy by having the simplicity of the same sort of game style, but I also look forward to seeing the new experiences that these new worlds are going to have. So what is something you're looking forward to in the next game of Scarlet and Violet?
I think I'm hoping they have some of that open world stuff like Arceus in it, because I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of the sort of playtester sort of materials I think that they were going with.
Yeah.
And I think that will really change the game if they change it into sort of a new style of open world like they did with Breath of the Wild and give us what Pokemon players have been asking for since day one. Is just, hey, look, we understand, we want to keep it the same way it was, but it's a new generation. Give us what we've always wanted, which was to literally live in the Pokemon world. So what is something that you wish that they would change about the Pokemon games moving forward?
Some of the gym battles get repetitive. Like I want to say it wasn't Sun and Moon. I think it was the one that came out before that, where it was you had to go and beat almost like it wasn't a gym leader. It was almost like a demigod type of deal that was a Pokemon. I like that direction, and I wish they'd bring some more of that back. That way it's not, you know, beat 7 people or however many there are, and then the Elite Four. Just something different.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of people have this misconstrued idea that like the only value that the new Pokemon games have is defeating the Elite Four or fighting the power that you're currently facing. I think what would be a really interesting concept would be to give us maybe a different viewpoint of even the villain's perspective. I think like allowing us to play, I think some of like the more interesting games, I think like Colosseum was a really good example of a different sort of play style where you're stealing Pokemon and you're like an Evo trainer, giving us a different lore style for a Pokemon game versus the same sort of static playthrough would be a really, really great concept that they could bring to these new consoles, especially with the Switch being so diverse.
Yeah, that Pokemon Unite? That was one of the newer ones. I thought that was pretty cool just because it was there's not any trainers involved really at all. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
I think they even have that one now on the Switch where it's literally just like battle style where you're just playing a Pokemon and you're just going
Yeah, it's like Pokken or something.
Yeah, so I think just allowing us to have like or even like the dungeon crawler ones where you're the Pokemon
Mystery Dungeon.
Mystery Dungeons.
Yeah.
Like, some of those games have been some of the most fun things that I've really enjoyed what they've played with in the Pokemon realm, rather than just giving us, like, everyone wants the classic game, but I really enjoyed the exploration of just the world itself, or even being a Pokemon. I think that was probably one of the coolest concepts.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and close up this episode. Thank you guys for listening. We hope to see you guys next time on the Talk Nerdy to Me podcast. I'm Justin, and this is Ashleigh. We'll see you guys next time.